like as this character, I can only create one slab at a time. And so you can either do what I'm doing, which is combining them here and then re-adding it here. Or let's see the other way. The other way would be to grab everything that you need, bring the whole pile into here, and then hitting the combine button. That way might actually be less clicks.
Personally, I have a keybind for activate and another keybind for combine that are right next to each other.
Why do you have that?
So I've trained my brain to do this really quickly. So when there's let's say a group of items in my inventory that I want to combine quickly, I hover my mouse over them, and in succession, I quickly hit activate, combine.
Which keys do you use for that?
V and C.
V and C. Oh my god, yeah, I use those. I used to use those for chop or cut down and then chop.
Yeah. I actually use shift those to cut and chop, but like
and
activate...
Serotonin saying there's a keybind for combine. There's so many keybinds in this game.
I know
that a lot of people don't use. And so this comes to our next topic that I want to talk about, which is this is a good leeway. How does everybody use their keybinds in this game? Because the way that it shows up in the game, and Silvertail.
Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you?
It's a renowned carpenter. Nice.
Ooh, lumberjack.
Living somewhere.
Renowned.
Oh.
That's 70, if I'm not mistaken.
That is 70.
Yeah, every letter on your keyboard is used. Yeah, me too. And almost every letter with a shift command, like shift A, shift B, like shift all of the letters is also used.
So specifically, I wanted to talk about, because we could talk all about keybinds and the way that it works in this game and how everybody has their setup. But let's focus on the tool belt, because I was really curious the other day. I was watching a bunch of streams and people were like not using the tool belt at all, or using it in different ways. So let's establish how the tool belt is used. So you have a tool belt, you drag items onto it, right? Compass, whatever. Drag items onto it, and you can activate items based on your tool belt. Then to top that off, you have multiple tool belts. So I believe it's 10 in total.
Yep.
Yeah, 10 in total. Different kind of tool belt profiles that you can use to save. So I saved this as my carpentry tool belt to number 1, and then load. So then you can load even from here, like number 3 is sort of my harvesting tool belt and bulk making type of stuff. I've got my number 4 is my leatherworking tool belt. And so I was curious, like, do people use tool belts the same way I do? Do people have a better way of using tool belts than I do? Because to top that off, what I do then is I bind each tool belt action or each tool belt slot to my number keys. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I can click 1, 2, I don't have anything on 3, but 4, 5, 6. So now I have quick access to all of these items. And even Garrus Drangi, if you only had 2 slots or 3 slots, that's even more useful, because then you have 10 profiles of, let's say, 2 or 3 slots, and you can go between all of them and basically have access to a whole slew of tools instead of one. So then on top of that, what I do is I keybind my Alt plus number keys to access my different profiles. So then I hold Alt down, and then I can go to number 2 or number 3. So now I'm in my 35 leatherworking. I do Alt 4, and then there's my leatherworking tools. And so no matter what, I'm not fiddling around with my tool belt in general ever. I'm just clicking my keybinds to make sure that I have all the tools that I need access to right from the get-go. And then I really, if I don't want to, need to have my inventory up ever. Like the goal is to make it so in as many situations as I can. What do I find it on Alt F4? Let's find out. No.
Let's find out.
I think we're a few decades from me actually pressing that button.
Yeah. Everybody falls for it once, and that's it.
Everybody fell for it once in IRC. How many of us fell for it in an IRC chat once back in 1997 or 8 or something or 6?
Yeah. I think that when they added the select bar way back in the day, all of a sudden the numbers 1 through whatever it is became auto bound to the select bar. I'm curious to know how people are using the select bar, or if people are using it at all. Has that helped people get into
the select
game?
bar was something that I think I was thinking about something like it that
What is the select
I thought
bar?
would improve or help with the game. And then so when it came in theory, it sounded like something that would be really cool. But in the way that it was implemented, fell short of it being useful. And I'd really have to deep dive into it to find out exactly why.
Right. It felt a
wasn't
little
useful.
clunky, like something.
I think I know why. So
Okay.
I don't really want to get into it unless we want to get into it. Typical doesn't even know like what is the select bar. Yeah, no one. Yeah. No,
You mean it? Are you
we are
serious?
saying that you're serious, and we're gonna believe you.
Okay.
Here's the select bar, and
Because that would
it
be
really
my
comes
response.
down. It
Every
really
time that
comes down to why the select bar, not what is it. Like, why does it exist? What was its intended purpose? What was it trying to solve? And if you can answer that, then you have to say, okay, does it solve that problem then?
Yeah. So I can tell you what it was trying to solve. So it was trying to solve the problem where new players would come into the game and would literally have no idea what their possible, like what was possible.
I
Right? So
think what
the
it
select bar-
was it supposed to replace the right click menu? I think that's what
It's
it was
supposed
supposed to do.
Yes, but it's also supposed to give you like when you click on something, like let's say a cave wall, and you have a pickaxe activated, it's supposed to have all the possible options there at your fingertips. Like you just press 1 to do the first thing, and like you're right, like everything that's in the right click menu should be just there, so people kind of have access to them at a button.
Yeah, it sounds great. Sounds like what you'd wanting to use, and you can see, yeah, Mary Hellion, Reaganation. People use it. It is useful if you came into the game, especially after it came out or during the time where it did come out. You might have become. It might have been something that you'd want to use, and I think
I have a question for people who do use it. If you use it, do you still have it set that like the numbers 1 through 5 or whatever are controlling the select bar, or do you use your mouse to click it?
No. And Lazarus, you're watching our stream online. Wait, so you're watching our stream online in real life? Is there another way to watch our stream? We are your neighbors. Okay, that's awesome. Which neighbors exactly? Oh, and Drankling, you use the shift numbers to select the action on the select bar. So,
Okay. Hey, Drakeling, how's it going?
yeah.
Been a while.
Why do I not like the select bar? I think it comes down to when we first started playing the game, almost everything. Are you making the slate? No, sorry, the marble shards. Is that what's going
Yeah,
on?
marble slabs now. Although I'm doing very poorly at it.
Where are you putting them?
I haven't made one yet. Okay, there's
Oh,
one.
you haven't made one yet. Like you've
I
been sitting
failed
there
about
forever.
seven times in a row. Failed.
I'm like, where are you putting them? Oh man, yeah. So, when we started playing, oh yeah, I guess I have to choose the slab. There we go. Everything that you did was within the game itself. So, if you're wanting to chop down a tree, obviously you go into the game and then you chop down the actual tree. In the game, the menu pops up. You choose chop, like, or however you want to do it, keybind, and then you cut it down, you chop it up. Same with basically anything. You're interacting with the game within the game itself, and then this select bar came in and made it so now I'm no longer interacting with the game or the item in the game. I'm interacting with the menu. And it was just one of many changes that they made to the game that ended up doing that in sort of this order that in the end people were joking like we have more menus that cover your entire screen.
Right.
Whereas when we first started, it was like everything was within the game itself. And but in saying that, it's like I want to like the select bar, but I think what happens is the implementation of it just wasn't something that I enjoyed.
So
I
just
almost
has a good
feel
point.
like, yeah, go ahead.
He says he has a friend that lost both arms in a car crash, and he uses eye tracking software.
Ah,
And the select bar for that person essentially allows them to play the game.
yeah, and I mean that's awesome, and I feel like I would be somewhere like where I enjoy the concept of the select bar and I enjoy what it's trying to accomplish, and I just don't enjoy the way that it's accomplishing it. So its functionality is fine. I don't mind the functionality and the way that it operates. I wish it did it within the game world. I think that's my only complaint. I wish that because in the end it doesn't add or accomplish anything for us as just the way that we play the game, or it doesn't add anything better. That's the wrong word.
It doesn't make it
just
more usable.
add something different. Yeah, it doesn't make it more usable. But what I think they were trying to do at the time, and I might be wrong, is they were trying to incorporate this at the same time they were trying to incorporate some kind of free look system. So the goal was to, and for people that remembers this system, that never really got put into the game, but it is in the game, just not in some sort of usable way. Again, is this. So now, if you can see, I am staring, or if I zoom in here. Oh, and see, this is why it's not in a usable way, because I can move it with my mouse, and then all of a sudden my mouse appears, and it is weird. Right. It shouldn't. So I'm supposed to do this, and you're supposed to see like a little crosshair, although I'm not seeing it. Maybe it doesn't exist anymore. And the mouse is moving without me clicking anything down. So now I'm on the dirt tile. Tile border.
It seemed to me
dirt.
like they were trying to get Wurm to work in the same way as like Minecraft does.
Yeah.
You know, where you don't need
They were
the
trying
click and left click. You're supposed to replace the right click menu.
They were trying to do that, and I wish that they continued with it and refined it in a way that actually made it usable. It's not usable right now, and so that's why they were trying to get rid of the right click menu. They were trying to get rid of basically anything within the game so that you can use the mouse. They're trying to get rid of anything that you use the mouse for, so you could use the mouse in a different way but still play the game. But what's great about these select tools and that sort of thing is that it almost makes it so that you can play this game with a controller. Almost, but not quite.
Right. Hey Vooch, welcome to the stream. Sipiku says, I wonder if Rolf was still the project lead, he would just change the interface to be played with just a console controller overnight, and then go on a weekend break just to show us how good we have it with mouse and keyboard. Yeah, I know the select bar is a little bit broken. Like, you're right. Like, there's some things that are missing.
Just doesn't work well.
Yeah.
All right. So while we're doing this, I'm pan filling with the console controller, right? Like, there's certain things you just can't do, and I think they started this experiment where they were going through it and they were trying to make it useful, but just never got to the end of that. So they never concluded or figured out a way to get to that stage that made it useful.
You're not the only one. And now I'm a baby. But you're not the only one. Ever since the select bar came in, I gave it a good shot. I tried to use it to see if I can see if it increases some functionality for me, but I couldn't.
If you're a person that doesn't like right click menu, this could help in most things.
But I feel like I rarely ever use the right click menu. Like, rarely. I've replaced all of it with keybinds mostly, and once they added the default keybind, that mostly cleared up all the remaining times I would ever use the right click menu.
Here's the thing: the default keybind is another solution that the select bar also tries to solve. Like, they're both of them are trying to solve the same problem, and so it's just another implementation of what the select bar could do. So instead of the select bar, we actually came up with a much better solution, which I really hope they get to, which was a combination of the select bar and this default action binding. So yeah, and that's essentially just make it so you can choose based on, let's say, all these options. Let's say I click this here. This is a really bad example, but I click the storage bin, and here it's saying that I have the ability to examine it or add to crafting window. I also have the option to open it, and there's a few other things you can do with this bulk storage bin. In this case, the default action is saying open, but how about if I wanted to examine it? Well, make it so you could filter through the different options somehow yourself and set your default action for this bulk storage bin yourself. So I can easily mouse wheel or something, switch it to examine, press F, it examines it, switch it back to open, press F again, it opens, all within the game world. Maybe just wherever it says open and I use the mouse wheel, it'll display the list of options and mouse wheel to the option that I want, and then it just sets it. I'd also want a secondary key as well. So I want a primary key, which we have, the default action, and instead of it being like a repeated action, which is nice, I don't know how many people are using it, but give us a second default action key that we can also set.
Yeah.
And
we can
so
choose what the default action is.
The player determines what they want those actions to be.
Right.
And therefore the game or the developers don't have to choose or figure out every single combination of everything, which, as we have found, it's not perfect. There's a lot of default actions that are not correct or just don't show up or just not available, and we have no control over that. Give us the control of that. Let us choose the default action that we want, and all of a sudden we don't need a bazillion keybinds on our keyboard anymore. We could reduce that number quite a lot. There's a lot of actions that, let's say for mining, as an example, let's say to mine forward, mine down, mine up, to level, to all this stuff. Well, why don't you just make it so I can just change the default action on the fly?
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't have to I can do it quickly, and then I don't really need 5 keybinds for mining. And you just have 1, and that could be the default, or 2, the default and like a secondary default one that I can switch up and choose whenever I want.
Get rid
and
of
that's
the repeat
what
action.
I thought they were going to do. And they're almost there. I love the default action. I use it all the time as a game changer, and now they just have to refine it and give us a little bit more control. And I think that will help the devs themselves, because they are struggling to find all the combinations of everything that we possibly would need for every single default action in the game. And, I'd argue that they're the ones that don't need to do that. They just give us the tools so we can do it ourselves.
Radial menu, and that basically is what you're describing, right? Like,
yeah, so it could be a radial menu, it could be a list, doesn't matter. But yes, like a radial menu.
Yeah. Like a menu, yeah.
Before the game came out on Steam, they were hyping up the new UI for many, many months. In total, it was almost like, who knows, 10 months? More than that? 10 months, I think, approximately.
I don't know if it's that long, but
10 months.
They definitely announced it something like November.
September to October, something like that was the announcement. Does anybody remember?
October.
They announced September, October. That's when the announcement came out, where they're shifting over to create a Steam client.
It came at the same time as we found out that Wurm was getting sold to another company, Game Chess Group, or whatever it's called.
Right. And then so they made that announcement, and they announced, I mean, I guess you could say that was their big roadmap for the year, which was where we're going to improve the game. We're going to make a new UI. We're going to polish up the game and then release it on Steam. And so, of course, that happened. But during that time, we were seeing sort of the slow development. It wasn't until very, very late in the game where we actually got to see some of the UI, sometime in like June or July or something, like really late. And so we had looked at it, and there was parts of it that we thought, okay, that's good, and then parts of it where we thought that was not good. And I had taken what I thought back in the October, November area. There was supposed to be a shift from UI to UX. They did some of it. You're right, Wolfmare. They did do some of it. I mean, that was the whole point of the being able to drag items from within the game world, being able to
place them,
have the default key, the default action item, like that sort of thing. And they did all that, which is great. And I had a picture in my mind. Okay, this is sort of what I think that they're going to do for the UI. And it didn't really happen that way. And I'm talking about a little bit about the functionality of the UI and the way that it's going to look. So I took what they gave us and I tried to craft something a little bit, like tried to create my concept, and I didn't really do all of it, but I did some of it. And I wanted to show you guys a little bit about it. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with this concept, other than just being able to show you guys what I did. Oh, I'm like standing way too far behind. There we go. except how many of these do I have? And did I just create? No, Willow. No. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, oh, one more.
And don't count Willow.
Not. So, okay, let me do this. So here's my concept. It's very, very simple and basic. So if you guys are just listening to our stream and you want to see my concept, you might want to come back here and take a look. So here's Photoshop. I don't know how to get rid of this. Okay. And so here's my concept for... No, I really needed that, didn't I? So here's the inventory. So let's take a look. So the inventory is essentially the same inventory that we have, the same window. What I changed was I really felt that, if we go back into the game, that they double bordered us when they created this new system. So if you look at the game and the way that the inventory or any of the windows look, they created a border and then they created a second border.
Right.
And that's not what we had before. And I wasn't sure why they did that, other than the fact that that second border changes color. The first border does not. And
right.
Not sure why they decided to do that way. So you can have the light colors, and you can see that the light second border changes color. That first border just doesn't. And so they kind of doubled it up. And it's why everything looks a little thicker than it used to, if you remember what the old UI looked like, because everything is a little thicker than it was. And so basically what I did was I took out that border to make it a little cleaner. And let me just zoom in to this here. So this is 100%. And all I really did here was use the font that they were using for what I thought they were going to change all the fonts to, and made an inventory for it. I had separated, it looks exactly the same as the inventory. It just has a cleaner look because of the font that they were using for everything else, like this area and in the game. And that's really all I did. Using the same icons on the side here, using the same icons over here, using the same format, separating it in a way that just looks a little cleaner. Down here, still the new search filter bar shows us the weight, and then a few other filter things here.
And I'm back. I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Okay, so I just finished. This was the inventory concept that I created. And then you can see here's like symbolizes a way that the grouping could work. So when you create your own group, you can have you can separate items like this. Anyway, so that's the inventory. The whole vision, before I go further about this UI, was the goals for me, or the vision for me, was let's remove as much of the UI that's blocking our screen into the game, as much as we possibly can, while not losing any of its utility. Same utility, less in our face. And so you can see that with a few things. One, the inventory is its inventory. I was trying to clean it up. The second thing I did was remove... Here's a quick button concept. It's exactly the same quick buttons, except laid out in a more categorical order and pushed off to the side so that it's not in front of our face. So right, Pent. Like, the categories are essentially look exactly like storage containers. So this would make it look a lot cleaner. You could even do something where you could have different icons at the top. They kind of do it down here where you can filter by different things like armor or tools or something. They could even have more icons or make the icons look better. And so you can filter by more things so you can organize your inventory even better. Yeah, typical. I thought that the vision of their UI was to remove the need for the UI, for more UI, and so to put our vision back into the game world. And so that's what this concept. Like, this is a very simple concept. I just basically categorized it by things that you can toggle, things that like containers, and then more like menu icons, and then tried to push it to the side enough that it didn't take up an entire space on our screen. I would assume that this would look a lot cleaner if they did it, and it could like pop out to the side or something, or however else you want to make it look less intrusive. The last thing I did here was basically made the chat basically not in front of your face. It's not a box. It's using the font again that they already implemented into some of the UI. The font is a lot cleaner and nicer. It's more like a font that you would read in a book. So that's what I thought that they were trying to do. And then made it so you can see, of course, this is like the text that just came in. These are the texts that came in before, so that they're a little faded out. Eventually it'll fade out. When you mouse over it, however, the chat box, then, you know, the box comes up. So you mouse over it, there's the box. And then you can just use it in the same way that you would use it before. And then there would be a timeout, so that once you mouse away from the box, it fades away, and all you're left with is that after 10 seconds or something. And so you can continue seeing the text, but you don't have the box in the way of the game. And the last thing that I did here, I didn't actually finish everything, but the last thing that I did was just simply standardize the tool belt a little. I saw a post on the forums where someone said, I don't know if you can see what I did, Adam. You can't even see my screen.
I can't see anything that you're showing. So,
you can't see my screen at all.
But
can anybody notice what I did? So the tool belt looks very similar, very, very much the same. But what I did was I took this part of the tool belt and made it more of the same size as the rest of the tool belt. So if you look at the tool belt that you're using now in the game, you find that the belt part is really large. So if I go back into the game, the buckle. Yeah, so let's turn this off. So there's my buckle, and you can see that that this is actually much a larger part of like over. So what happens is if people trying to really make themselves more square, trying to place everything together in some sort of Tetris style UI, the buckle just doesn't fit because it is much larger than the rest of the tool belt. So that's all I did with my concept there, was just to make it just fit but still have a buckle.